Role-playing games, everywhere you look. Whether it's set in a huge cyber city, the aftermath of a zombie apocalypse, or in collaboration with George R.R. Martin, RPGs will be carrying on their momentum going into the next generation of gaming pretty damn easy. Luckily for us, more RPGs means more choices, and the games on this list come in varying shapes, sizes, and tastes. Some we don't know that much about, some were due for release in 2020 and then got delayed, and others will still be years away. Now, before you ask, I have skipped Cyberpunk and tried to delve a little deeper, looking at more unique, quirky, lesser-known titles or far-away ones that could change everything. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 mind-blowing upcoming RPGs you need to know about. Number 9, Biomutant. Biomutant, or Rocket Raccoon the Game, is an open-world RPG where you play as a cat, raccoon, animal thing. Mutated and ready for all sorts of customization, this little guy has the potential for a host of attacks and all sorts of traversal abilities. For example, the main focus of combat is a martial arts kung fu style that is heavily inspired by the quick, impactful movements found in comic books or animated shows. You can learn new styles from different masters and meld combat paths as you please, but the player choice doesn't end there. According to footage found so far, your character's build will be very important from the beginning. The overall feel of your character will be dependent on their size, strength, agility, intelligence, etc. If they're buff as hell, they'll be better suited to heavy melee weapons, but likely much slower. If they're agile, they'll be quicker and maybe shorter, choosing lighter weapons instead. Intelligence also plays a part in how you'll talk to other characters, which is a very Obsidian-esque trait to bring across and something I am all for. Alongside playing a small furry protagonist, Biomutant seems to be taking itself very seriously in regards to leveling, skills, and the consequences of player choice. Number 8, Godfall. Godfall is a looter-slasher developed by Counterplay Games, and was also the first title announced for the PS5. As the next generation slowly comes into view, the holiday season for 2020 could be stacked for RPG fans. Set in a fantasy-like setting, Godfall looks to take what Borderlands did in regards to looting and shooting, but put the emphasis on melee weapons and items. Which armor plates will you choose to wear, and which items will you swing in which realm? Each is said to greatly vary your playstyle, boosting or lowering certain stats and adding new abilities. Not much is known about Godfall at the moment except the heavy focus on items. Through leaked footage said to be over a year old, it shows a number of different realms all based on a different element. Earth, water, air, fire, and spirit all change visuals and movement, plus the specifics of which enemy types you're bringing down. Fire breathers, water throwers, and those that weaponize wind, it sounds like you'll have to design realm-based loadouts, which could be a great way to shake up an otherwise loot-based RPG. Number 7, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Now being taken over by developer Hardsuit Labs, Bloodlines 2 will see a 16-year interval between games. Bolstering the very definition of an immersive sim, Hardsuit offers players an abundance of choice in how to pursue their goals. Running up walls, lockpicking, night vision, and gliding through the night on a cloud of bats are just a few things to expect. Many skills are tied to 3 specific trees too: Chiropteron, Mentalism, and Nebulation, focusing on skills pertaining to bats, telekinesis, and mist respectively. All the while, you'll be able to interact with the grisly residents of Seattle through rich and in-depth dialogue. Lastly, the game offers resonances, which are short to permanent buffs based on who you choose to devour. For example, feasting on a couple may offer the desire resonance, affecting your interactions with everyone else. So whether it's smooth talking, wall running, or bat gliding, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 offers as much player choice as it does syllables. Number 6, Elden Ring. Not that much is known about From Software's Elden Ring, though we do know a lot about its development. Headed by the director/producer of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, Hidetaka Miyazaki, and in collaboration with George R.R. Martin, we're already feeling the warmth of a fantasy world covered in bonfires and ashen enemies. Besides being the follow-up to the masterfully refined Sekiro, Miyazaki has revealed some information as to how Elden Ring is an open-world game, bigger in scale than anything they've done before. Your choice of weapons, magic, and abilities will affect how you explore this huge world, and with G.R.R. Martin conceptualizing the various kings, factions, and citizens that populate it, Elden Ring is very much a culmination of many pop culture elements fused into one. Number 5, Warlander. From indie developer Clock Drive Games, Warlander is a pretty RPG not dissimilar from the Fable franchise. The visuals are quaint with bold colors, exaggerated designs, and incredible lighting that adds an extra layer of depth to the environment overall. Warlander is set in a fantasy world where tactical, well-thought-out combat is a must. You'll need to be planning strikes, swings, and slashes in order to match specific vulnerabilities of various enemies. Weirdly enough, usually simple elements of an enemy's appearance like height, width, attack pattern, and armor type now make a huge impact on combat. This is because you need to be aware of weak spots, uncovering parts of the body which can then be used to dismember, behead, or split enemies in half. Factor in a bunch of environmental physics to take out groups of foes at once, and Warlander seems small in scale, but mind-blowing in its technical combat. Oh, and alongside the slow-paced methodical action is a literal skill tree, motivating you to try new things and asking for items. If you want a skill relating to sweeping out someone's legs, you'd best get amputating, then bring your pile of limbs back to the skill tree. It's pretty awesome. Number 4, Kingdom of Night. Kickstarter can be a scary thought, as although there's been some success stories, many projects have burned consumers, making them think twice about the idea in the first place. Hopefully though, we've got something special with Kingdom of Night. Reaching its goal in just 48 hours, the developers have added tier upon tier to the roadmap with a lot to share about their creation. To start with, there are 9 classes split into 3 groups of melee, ranged, and magic. Then there are 3 branches of skills with 10 abilities in each. Next up, we have varying loot tables that offer tailored items from drops, bosses, and quests, plus a killer concept for the whole game. See, after an introductory chapter, you're off to explore the town of Baphomet with notebook in hand. The world is stylized like an 80s teen horror, and although the pixel art could turn some players away, it's kinda Stranger Things with more traditional demonic enemies, and that's just awesome. Ultimately, we've got a small-scale game with plenty of heart, unafraid to compete with the big dogs of the RPG world thanks to an enthusiastic approach to character depth. Obviously, crowdfunding can be a tricky beast in regards to delays, drama, and dropped content, but hopefully this one turns out alright. Number 3, Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI has yet to be officially announced, but Square did note that their Final Fantasy XV team have moved on to the next AAA project. This is alongside the rumors of a Final Fantasy XVI logo dropping alongside the reveal of the PS5, which at time of recording is still in a few weeks, scheduled for the end of February. Combing through everything available online, it looks like the 16th Final Fantasy will do 2 things. Firstly, there's more of a focus on fantasy. Less mechanical enemies, less shooting, and arguably less armored personnel. Secondly, apparently Square Enix are looking to create a larger, more diverse world. Even if these things are just rumors, they both sound like a natural extension of everything we've come to associate with Final Fantasy as an IP. Number 2, Dreamscape. It's the Binding of Isaac mixed with RPG elements, and that might be enough for some people. But what's more intriguing is the combination of gaming with surrealism and depression. They are of course hard topics to discuss and frame, let alone create a game about. Dreamscape offers both of these elements with 2 playable worlds. One where the protagonist Cassidy is awake, living a normal life in coffee shops and bookstores, and the dream world, where the action takes place. It's hard to define this as a strict RPG, as interviews with the developers and the game's demo have shown there's plenty of room for both exploration and interaction. An example is if Cassidy talks at length with certain people, say a sci-fi writer in a bookstore, she can then be inspired enough afterwards that she's able to find specific weapons relating to that topic back in the dream world. Maybe this isn't strictly an RPG, but the combination and focus on some kind of progression that remains in the real world is pretty damn cool. The nearest thing I can think of is something like Soul Reaver, and that's not making a return anytime soon. Dreamscape looks to create a nice balance of story, replayability through its roguelike areas, and a player-driven experience in the real world too, all with a network of characters powering you through. And number 1, Starfield. Starfield is none other than Bethesda's next RPG, their first new IP in over 20 years. That said, some say even with the release of Skyrim or a more recent example like Fallout 76, Bethesda have been losing their grip on the RPG scene. This is likely due to their games becoming so popular in the mainstream, there's a financial pressure to cut the confusing parts out, so increasingly wider audiences can enjoy the final product. With the entirety of their 2010s output in mind though, Starfield is Bethesda's chance to get themselves back on track. No multiplayer, no Preston Garvey, no getting arrested for punching chickens. Instead, we're looking at a next-gen space RPG. What does that mean for now, though? Well, very little other than a foray into a dedicated sci-fi RPG, and Todd Howard saying that the game will use the same game engine yet again as Fallout 76 and Fallout 4. Let's stick to the positives though, as this is still Bethesda that we're talking about. They know what the Bethesda name means, or should mean, and it's high time that they demoed something that blows our collective sweet rolls off. Whatever Starfield turns out to be through grand scale or another Fallout 76 sized disaster, it will be the very definition of mind-blowing. And those are just a handful of mind-blowing upcoming RPGs I think you need to know about. Let me know your favorites down in the comments below, and if you have any other suggestions. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com. Please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast, and I'll catch you soon.